Let's go.
Привет, друзья! Добро пожаловать на наш вебинар. Сегодня у нас в гостях человек, и рил со сценами к игре турок знает, наверное, каждый аниматор на планете. Те, кто еще не видел, могут посмотреть его, перейдя по ссылке под этой трансляцией. Не побоюсь этого слова, один из лучших аниматоров в мире, Кэмероном Филдингом. Hi, Cam. Welcome to our meeting.
Hello.
А также с нами сегодня прекрасный человек и великолепный аниматор, несравненная Соня Соло, которая проведет сегодня встречу. Итак, давайте начнем. And I'm giving the floor to Sonia.
Hey, hi everyone. Hi, Cal.
Hey, Sonia.
Here's the first question. How did you become an animator? How did you decide to become an animator? What was
Okay, so I became an animator basically by brute force. I didn't really plan to be an animator, and I didn't really have any plan in mind, you know, when I was thinking about my education and stuff. I knew that I wanted to be an animator. This might be kind of cliche, but I was never really kind of a cartoon guy or a comic guy when I was a kid. But I saw Dragon Slayer when I was a little boy, which had like this kind of stop motion dragon in it, done by Tippett Studio. And they had done this kind of special effect where they motorized the rig, and it had like a motion blur baked into the stop motion. So it's really smooth stop motion. And that really kind of made an impression on me as a kid. And then when I saw Jurassic Park, like most of us, I just wanted to get into CG. And I played with computers when I was a kid. You know, I started doing 3D stuff when I was maybe about 12 or 13, and I download little Star Wars models from this really super old website, and I do little animations with them, like flying into each other and exploding and stuff like that. And then in terms of training to be an animator, back in kind of 2019, well, I guess about 1997, 1996, when it was time for me to go to college, there was only one computer animation course in the United Kingdom. And it was very kind of, a lot of it was kind of math and programming. And I always had been led to believe that to be a 3D animator, you had to know a lot of math and stuff like this. So I did a degree in graphic design instead, which I was really horrible at. I was just horrible at graphic design. But fortunately, in the final year of the degree, we were able to do animation for some like crazy reason that wasn't clear to me. And I just got 3D Studio Max, and I kind of storyboarded out an idea for a competition that was run by the Royal Society of Arts Student Design Awards in London. And the title was just Artificial Intelligence. That was all it was, and you could interpret it any way you liked. And I just kind of opened up Character Studio Max, and I didn't know what I was doing. I built some basic sets, and I had like these little kind of cube characters, and I don't know how I did this, but I managed to make a 3-minute animation, like a short film. And the animation was horrible, but it did pretty well in the competition. And because of that, I was able to leave college and immediately start work in a game animation, in a game development studio. And the first project that I worked on was a game called Animaniacs for the GameCube, which is based on like an older Warner Brothers property. And it was just great because I had a great supervisor there, a lady called Helen Kershaw, who'd come from Cosgrove Hall in Manchester. And she just taught me a bunch of stuff, you know, basic stuff about animation, and I was doing cycles and like cool little climbs and ducks and stuff, and it just kind of went from there. I think that I'm just kind of lucky, really. I always just feel a bit like I've been in the right place at the right time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wasn't trained in animation in any way other than having learned from people that I've worked with, which is probably the best way to do it, you know, just to be inspired by people and be able to talk to those people. But I wish I had been, you know. I think there's a lot of value in training people to be animators. Like, teaching yourself is a different path, and I think generally it's a longer path, you know, and it's a more difficult path. I think it's great. Animation training is great. I wish I'd had the opportunity to have more when I was younger. Yeah.
So, what was the most difficult scene and maybe the most difficult project you've worked on?
That's a tough question, because I have to say that I think I mean, this is going to sound cheesy, but I think every shot that you do is always kind of the most difficult shot, because, you know, when you're working on something, you're always kind of right in the moment and you're giving all of your energy and all of your concentration, and it always feels like the most difficult thing in the world. And I really believe strongly that the shots that are more difficult, I think I mentioned this previously, but the shots that are more difficult are the kind of the quick shots, the shots that don't seem like, you know, they really matter that much, as opposed to like a big fighting shot or a big acting performance, because it's like you don't have much rope, you know, to play with, and you have to hit the meaning of the shot and the acting and everything in a very short amount of time. You know, it could just be something simple like a character turning or a character picking something up and throwing it. Like, sometimes things are just really difficult. But I guess more of an interesting answer, I guess, is what you're looking for. I would say that probably a shot that was particularly difficult was one that I did when I worked on How to Train Your Dragon. And there's a moment in that movie where Toothless is stuck underwater, and he's in this kind of wooden contraption thing that they've kind of sealed him in. This Toothless is this dragon character, and there's this big Viking guy called Stoic, and he swims underwater, and he kind of breaks this harness that Toothless is in, and that was just a difficult shot, because it was really hard for me to think about the kind of the mechanics of how someone would kind of, you know, imagine this, like, this is I guess it's this way around. Like, this is the Viking and this is Toothless, and he had to kind of sit there for a bit and then swim down and like break him out of this thing and then kind of swim back. And it was just like, technically it was very difficult of how that would move. But interestingly enough, at the time, me and my good friend Ron Pucciarelli, who was a colleague of mine at DreamWorks, what we actually did is we got a glass jar, and we put a camera inside it, and we went to a swimming pool, and we filmed ourselves like swimming under the water and acting the scene out to try and get reference for this. And we showed it in dailies, and everybody laughed at us. But you know, it was invaluable. But yeah, I think you know, there are shots like that, and then it's the shots that surprise you that are the most difficult, because you think that it's going to be easy. You know, you're like, oh, he just needs to kind of duck under this thing or climb over this thing really quickly, and then all of these problems appear that you would never anticipate, and they're the difficult shots. But honestly, every shot is hard. There's no easy shot. If a shot is easy, then you're probably doing it a lazy way, and you should be doing it a bit of a harder way, I think. Okay,
so would you tell us how many hours of practice you need to become an animator like you?
Oh man. So just to stop you there, I think that I don't know. I mean, I think that my animation is okay. You know, I think there are hundreds of animators better than me. Honestly, like, I really do believe that. And I think if you don't believe that, there's something wrong with you. You know, I think you should always be striving to improve. Otherwise, you don't ever get better. I think there's certain things that I'm good at and certain things that I'm really not good at. But I mean, I don't know. That's a really difficult question to answer. The only thing, I guess, the thing that would probably be more useful information is to, instead of concentrating on how long you practice for or how long it takes someone to become a good animator, is just to kind of encourage the idea that what's important is for you to, and this, you know, I say this and it's a difficult thing to do, but it's just to try your best to work on the things that it is that you like, that you're interested in, because that's when you'll really thrive, is when you're working on the kind of shots or the kind of scenes or the kind of motions that you've always wanted to animate, you know, since you were a kid or since you started to think about animation. Like, giving yourself the opportunity or finding those opportunities is when you're going to do your best work and where you're going to learn the most, because you're just, you know, you're following your passion, and that's when your brain just kind of opens up and like absorbs everything at this crazy rate. But I don't, it's a difficult question, Sonia. I think I was lucky, you know, like I said at the beginning, that I was very early in my career, I was given the chance to just animate all day for 8 hours a day at my job, you know, and that was lucky. And I think that if I hadn't have been able to do that, if I'd had to have, you know, left university and worked a different job, I would have had to have found the time to do that in my own time. Because that's what it is. I mean, animation is really difficult, but anybody can learn to do it. I think that you should never be intimidated by people that you think are good. You should just be happy for them that they're good, you know, and look at what they've done and try and, you know, try and look at it and understand what it is about it that's good. And I don't know, just realize that it takes practice. Anybody can do it if they just practice. It really.
Great.
You know, yeah.
Thank you. Well, tell us please about your workflow. So, are you using keyboard, graph editor? How do you optimize your working process? How do you approach blocking? So,
Okay. So, what I tend to do is I will, I guess there's two sides to this story. So there's the side of it where you have to think, like, say for it, you know, let's just talk about a shot, right? So there's a side of the process where you have to think in your mind, what is the shot about? So, you know, every shot is in a movie because it's supposed to be there. You know, you look at modern movies and you realize that, yeah, you could probably take some shots out, but, you know, the theory is that every shot in a movie is there for a reason. So you have to make sure that you understand what that reason is. And you don't always have to figure that out yourself, because sometimes it's not obvious. Like, you know, if you're given an opportunity to ask a supervisor, or even better, to ask the director, just, you know, what is this shot for? What needs to happen? You know, and a lot of the time in working in movies that happens, you know, there comes a point where you're sat down with the people who designed the shot or designed the story, and they will tell you pretty directly what the purpose of the shot is and what needs to be said. And so the first thing you do is try and figure out what's the most efficient and the best way and the fun way of doing that. And that's quite a deep process, but really you just have to trust your instinct. If you think that something feels good, then it usually is, because, you know, you're an animator, you have an eye for this kind of stuff. And then what I do is sometimes I will just go straight to reference, and I'll film myself, you know, doing some movement or relaying the dialogue over and over. Like, I'll play the dialogue in the background of the room and just kind of act it out roughly in time. Or sometimes what I'll do, if there's a lot of action, is I'll move like a cube around, or a very low resolution into like representation of the character, And at that point, I'm just trying to figure out staging, like how close I want something to get to the camera, and like the right angle, and how quickly it will move. And a lot of what I'm doing, in fact, what I spend a lot of my time thinking about is just looking for opportunity to make good poses. So I think about that before motion, because you know, it is true, and like I've said this before, I'm repeating myself, but you have to have good poses or you don't get good animation. Like, it's simple, really. And so I'm looking for those opportunities, and I'm looking for them, you know, with the staging. So I'm trying to put the cube where it's going to look cool, you know, like nice angles, and thinking of it as a character, but, you know, I just mean in terms of where it is in the camera. And then I'm looking for those things in my reference too. So I'll look at my reference and see, oh, there's a nice pose in there, or like I do a funny little movement there that I didn't expect. And then what I would do is I'll take the reference, you know, I'll look for sections that I like, and then I'll kind of edit pieces together, little chunks together, and I put it in Maya, and I time it to an image plane, so it's timed to the shot, and I can scrub it, and it updates. Like as I scrub it, you know, it's rewinding and fast forwarding in Maya. And then what I do is I take the keys from that, like I look at the poses that I like, and I pose them on the model. And then there's a bit of a double-edged sword where you have to be careful not to fall into the trap of just, you know, letting the reference do the work for you. There comes a time where you have to just turn it off and just trust your instinct to kind of embellish the shot. And you know, sometimes your shot might come out looking quite like the reference, and that's okay, like if that's the right thing. But a lot of the time, like sections of it will change, or like, you know, you'll change bits of movement that you thought were really nice in your reference, and you'll just kind of make it up as you go along because it feels nicer. And I don't know, like, just, I guess from a technical standpoint, that's my process. But I guess the biggest thing to take away is just kind of trust your instinct and what you think is going to look good, you know, and as early as you can, get a version that you can show people that's clear what it is you're trying to do. And often, like, the cube or the reference is good enough for that. And just ask people what they think, because you can miss obvious things as well. I don't know, you know, you can talk all day about how like technique, but that's, I guess, the core of the way that I work. I don't know if that's the best way, but it works sometimes for me, so that's generally the way I do it.
See, well, tell us, please, you have worked for sort of cartoonish and live action films. What do you like best? What is the difference for you?
Yeah, so I wish that I had, up to this point, you know, in my job, been able to do more kind of live action stuff. I mean, that is my favorite stuff. I think it's really challenging to kind of do live action with CG characters, because there's lots of things there that are kind of unforeseen that you don't expect. And I think as well that when I was a kid, I was always that was kind of the movie magic for me, you know, like thinking about the fact that live action movies, like, they're real people, you know, they're real sets, and like there's real cameras and there's a real crew behind the camera. And CG, like full CG movies, you know, everybody's still there, but there's something about it which is just a lot more kind of, I don't know, it's just not as magical to me. I guess that's how I can explain it. And I think that there's a certain kind of animation that I've always enjoyed, which is, you know, not realistic animation, which is the way that people usually describe it, but it's like if you animate a creature or a character in a, you know, a CG with live action composited movie, there's a real challenge in finding the balance between something that looks realistic and something that looks interesting, because a lot of the time, if you just make things look real, they're not very interesting. And so you have to find a balance, and you know, with exaggerated movement, and at the same time as finding, you know, doing something interesting with the character, making the character act. Whereas, you know, full CG, you know, DreamWorks, that kind of work is great too, because it's different. It's like different tools that you have. Like generally, you have a lot more room to exaggerate and play with timing, you know. And if you have nice characters, you know, you can get really nice poses, and it becomes a lot more graphic. But I don't know. I've just ever since I saw, you know, movies like E.T. and Indiana Jones, and particularly like, you know, Jurassic Park and those kind of movies, it was just always a thing for me to want to do live action and CG animation. Yeah, that's what I like the most, I think.
I see. So there are some technical questions here from our viewers. Do you use animation layers in your work? Do you work with Motion Builder? Have you worked in Blender software?
So I've used, so okay. So I think the first kind of real animation that I did was in 3D Studio Max, and that's what I did that, you know, my student short film in, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But I guess there was the first time I had kind of animated anything properly. Like before that time, I was using some programs on the PC, like there was like Imagine 3D, which I think was an old Amiga program, but I had a port of it onto the PC, and it was just kind of making things follow paths through space and stuff. But my strength is in Maya. You know, people sometimes laugh when they come over to my desk because I can show you it. This thing here, see this crazy thing?
Yeah.
So what it is it's basically just a keyboard peripheral that you can kind of program hotkeys and stuff into. And I started using one of these at DreamWorks because we used the old, now they have Primo, which is this amazing animation software. But at the time I was there, we had Emo, which was, you know, the older version of their proprietary software. And there was a lot of kind of crazy, weird shortcuts on the keyboard. And so I got hold of one of these X keys, and I guess I'm kind of a super geek for like economizing my workflow. So I write, I know this probably isn't helpful advice to people that are learning animation, because you want me just to say, oh yeah, you know, I just use a graph editor, but I kind of don't. I have a lot of my own tools that I write, and a lot of my own processes. I do a lot of, you know, constraining. I do a lot of constraining. Like I'll have the standard rig that I'm working with, but I'll kind of constrain things on and off and make little temporary hierarchies and bake things down and then delete the hierarchy and kind of move forward. I guess you could say my workflow is kind of a little bit destructive. Like I tend to kind of force myself to make choices that are difficult to go back on. But I think that's a good thing because I have to think carefully about what I'm doing. I do like animation layers, but I tend to do it in a way that's with a custom tool of my own, but it essentially is animation layers. And, you know, I think tools like Tween Machine and stuff like that are like super, super important. And there's lots of different ways that you can do that same idea. I mean, Tween Machine is a great tool that really is just going to kind of push you away or towards a pose. It's basically your quick way of like doing an ease out or an ease in. And yeah, curves I use more for polish, really. Like I know lots of people that will block with their curves, you know, and I never understood that. I like to think about animation as poses. And I think that depending on the kind of action, like if it's acting, I'll tend to do more of a stepped key approach. I don't really know why. I just think for acting, it's easier to see what you're doing in that way. But for action, I do more of a layered approach where like I was saying before, like I'll take a cube or something and figure out the staging and the timing, and then I'll kind of work layered through it, like doing like the hips first and then the legs, and then like usually I do the head first, actually, like if it's a dragon or something stupid like that, I'll kind of figure out what the head's doing and then I'll do the body. But as often as possible, I try to do that in step too. It's just, my keys are stepped, but I'm not keying the entire body all the time. I'll go back on the same keys that I've already set and repose things and stuff. But yeah, animation layers are great. I haven't used Blender. I haven't had an opportunity to use that. I hear that it's a great program and does a bunch of stuff, and I hear good things about Cinema 4D. I think something that as animators we're lucky is that the process of doing animation on a computer doesn't really change that much. It's you have a rig and you pose it out and you set keys and you can control it with a graph editor. Things like, I feel that people that know, compositing software and character modelers and stuff, they have a lot more kind of new technologies and new processes to they have to keep up with. But animators, we don't have that so much, which is a good thing for us because we can just concentrate on finding a workflow which works for us, and you can usually just stick to it for years. I mean, that's what I've done.
Yeah. So please tell us the rigs you're working with. Are they complex? Is it easy to work with them? Are they unified?
I think that so if you talk about a feature animation rig, they're complicated in that, particularly in the face, you'll have lots of control. And so it's not that these things are difficult to use, it's just what's difficult to know is what you should be doing, because you can basically do anything. You can squeeze parts of the eye, raise little individual things, like puff the cheeks, dilate the pupils, and when you have so many things to animate, it can be a little bit overwhelming. And the thing with rigs like that is that they take time to discover, and it's the same with any character really that you animate. There's kind of a process, kind of 3 stages that you kind of go through, which the first one is where you're kind of learning the rig, and it's not so much that you're learning the rig, you're learning the character and the rig at the same time, which is difficult because you're trying to understand the limitations and the advantages of the rig that you have, but you're trying to discover the character. And then you go into this kind of, I don't know, almost like a honeymoon period, which is where you've done a number of shots with the character and you just kind of get it, and you know what poses work well, and you know what angles and stuff look nice on the character, and you know what controls give you what you need. And then you go through like kind of the annoying stage, which is where you might have animated that character so much you're kind of sick of it and you want to animate a different one. But I think that it's important to understand that no rig is ever going to do what you want it to do exactly, and it doesn't matter how much you speak to TDs and rig designers. It's impossible for those guys to design rigs that can do everything that animators want, especially because we all work in different ways. Which is why I stress it really is important as an animator to understand things like constraints, just simple point constraints and parenting and orient constraints, and just understand how those things can help you solve problems, because that's what they're there for. And oftentimes those things can be done without, this notion that animators break rigs is kind of, I don't really know where that comes from. I think that comes from bad rig design more than anything. Because a rig is there to be broken. That's kind of the point of it, is that, you give animators a tool that they interact with how they choose. That's how artists work. Yeah.
See. So here's the question. Let's suppose I would like to work in ILM. That is my highest goal in life.
Yeah.
What skills should I require?
I think so. This might be the answer that you totally don't expect, but I think that what's important to think about is stuff that you might not have thought about. Like, you know, if you're going to work at a studio like ILM, really, it's not, you know, it's not that it's easy. I would never say it's easy to go and work somewhere like that, because, you know, they have high standard of the people they want to hire, and there's lots of people that want to work there. So you have to have a good reel, and you have to be good at what you're doing, and you have to be able to talk well. You know, you have to be able to have an interview either in person if you're lucky, or over the phone, and present yourself well and make sure that people know what you're talking about. But I think that there's other things as well that people don't often consider. You know, that if you're like myself, like when I, you know, I'm not a US citizen. When I worked at ILM, you know, it's not easy to move to another country and get residency and, like, you know, deal with you know, contracts and stuff like that. It's a tough game, you know, and people have to think as much as is possible in, I guess, this modern age. Like, you have to devote a little bit of your thought to your goals in terms, and your plans in terms of, you know, the logistics of life. Like, it's not just about where you think it would be cool to work. Like, you know, I think that's a great driving factor, and I wouldn't suggest anyone not have that, but there's more to think about than just how good you are as an animator. You know, you have to think about, do I really want to go and live in another country, and what does that mean? Because those things happen. You know, you get to ILM and you're there and stuff, and then you're like, oh man, you know, I live in America, this is kind of weird. But, you know, it's good. I mean, that's life, that's what it's there for. It's just, I think that it could be said that people don't spend enough time thinking about those kind of things. But I don't know, I guess the answer you're looking for is just if you have a dream job, which is a great thing to have, just do what you love. Like I said this before, like, try and, if it's possible for you to do it in the modern world where everyone has no time and everyone's busy all the time, if you have the opportunity to just work on the kind of things that you love, whether it's at your current job or things that you're doing yourself at home, just do those things, because those are the things that will be good. And that's all you need. You just need good work, and you need to not be like crazy. And, you know, there's opportunity for everybody, you know. And ILM, I mean, I'm not talking specific about ILM. I think it's the same anywhere. You know, ILM's going to want to hire good people that are confident and good at what they do, and understand why they're doing the things they're doing. And I wouldn't discourage anyone from trying to go and work there. It's an amazing, amazing place to have worked. And, you know, it was a really, really fun and good experience for me to work there. I think it's a great goal for anybody to have.
So, did you like working with main road posts and attraction?
Yes, I totally, absolutely did. Attraction was really an interesting show, because the guys there were very trusting of me, which was, you know, it was good for me, because I kind of learned very quickly that if I trusted my idea and I thought that the idea worked, that the guys there and the director would be happy with it. And that was just a very empowering thing, because I think with any kind of creative endeavor, like, there's something that you do need is confidence. You know, you need to be able to know that what you're doing is good. You know, if you constantly doubt what you're doing, it's very, very destructive to your creativity. And main row posts were brilliant just for kind of trusting me to come up with a good idea for a shot. And when I showed blocking and reference and stuff, they were great, you know. And there were a couple of occasions where I did the wrong thing. You know, I do some blocking for something. I remember there was a shot where I'm not sure what I can say, but there was a shot where you know, a character had to do a certain thing, and I did it an alternative way that I thought was more interesting. But you know, there were a couple of weird constraints. Like I wasn't fully aware like how big the character was and stuff like this. This was the first shot that I worked on for them. You know, and then like there were some things where one shot was quite a quick one. I just totally did the wrong thing, you know, and it was like just a small miscommunication. But generally, I thought it was amazing to work with main row post because I really felt that there was a passion there, you know, like I guess you could say compared to the industry, you know, quite a small team of people that just love what they're doing and like are constantly trying to do the best that they can in the time that they have and the money that they have. And I just love working with people like that. People that want to make something good, just to make it great, you know. Like that was really kind of fun for me. The character was cool. Like it was a difficult character to work with, but it was good because, you know, I kind of learned a couple of new things about posing and about process, and you know, and it's more satisfying when you feel that you have a shot or a couple of shots on a show that turned out that you really like them. You know, when they're difficult, like when they're difficult and you get them, it's a lot more rewarding than when something just kind of like you already have something that just kind of works. Yeah, it was really, really, really good fun working with those guys. Brilliant.
Good. And thank you very much for the T-Rex scene in the reel with the dinosaur. It inspired a lot of us.
Oh yeah.
So how much time did it take to create this scene? And did you use any references?
I did, yeah. I used some reference of me kind of attacking pillows and stuff in my lounge. Those sequences were done. They were done pretty quick, I think. I mean, it's so long ago now. I mean, it's like almost 10 years ago I did that stuff. I think they were done in about a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks each. But I think a lot of that was, I think traditionally, you know, like if one of those shots was in a movie, it would take longer than that because, you know, you have to make sure that you're hitting certain guidelines and things that the shot need that maybe are coming from other people, like a director or a supervisor. But all of those shots that I did for Tarek were just purely self-directed. So I didn't really have to answer to anybody. I just kind of did what I wanted to do. And it was fun for me. And they turned out, you know, I think they turned out okay because I just loved to do it. I'd always wanted to animate dinosaurs, you know, because I'm a Jurassic Park fan. And then I kind of got to do it and I just enjoyed it. But I think that, I mean, Tarek was so long ago now, they were kind of the first shots that I ever really did, you know, with a fixed camera and stuff like that. And it was the first time I ever really used reference and, you know, recorded myself. It was just a great time working on those things. And, you know, I have a bit of a soft spot for them because people always talk about them, you know, and I look back at them now and I can see like, oh God, you know, there's like a million things that I would change, you know, do differently, but, you know, I don't know, they're fun, like they're old. But yeah, I think so for example, like the one that I like the most out of that reel is the one where the guy the lizard kind of jumps on the guy and he's kind of wrestling with it, and then it kind of bites him and like drags him across the floor. That took about, I think, a week and a half or about 2 weeks to do. Yeah.
See, so do you draw any sketches?
So the only drawing that I do now is, and this is something that I'm really horrible at, is I try to do like little storyboards for just my own ideas. Like I'm kind of a frustrated artist in that, like, I have these ideas in my head of things that I want to do. You know, just kind of little sequences. Like I don't really want to make short films or anything like that. I just kind of have these pipe dreams, I guess you could say, of like just doing little sequences that are kind of lifted out of movies, maybe like 30 seconds out of a monster movie, or like 20 seconds out of an action movie or something. But I find that, you know, really that's not my strong point. I feel like I'm good at figuring out what to do in a shot or a couple of shots. I'm not good at really like designing a story or a sequence. So I'm trying to get better at that. And I do just kind of like little thumbnail storyboards to try and kind of realize some of these stupid ideas in my head. But in terms of like doing thumbnails for a shot or doing drawing for a shot, I don't do that. I used to do that a little bit. I did a little bit when I did those turret shots, you know, but I think I was just kind of doing it because I thought that I should. I didn't think I really understood what I was doing. I've found that just really that hasn't really helped me much, like doing drawing. I think it would if I was better at drawing and I could articulate more like what I was trying to do, like be able to draw a good pose or something. But I find that, you know, the processes that I described before is how I find that stuff. Yeah, I don't really draw. I used to when I was a kid. I was always really good at copying stuff, you know, like copying photos and like drawing pictures of tigers and stuff like that out of like photography books and lions and stuff. And I used to I just don't do it anymore. But I can't really make stuff out of my head. Like even my storyboards, they're kind of, I'm not sure other people would be able to understand what they are, you know. They're just for me. Yeah.
So what is for you more important, poses or timing? What do you think?
I think poses. I mean, I have to say, I mean, it's really, it's kind of weird. It's like saying what's more important, the wheel or the steering wheel on a car, you know, because they both have like, you can't really have one without the other. But I think that something that's more important to learn first is posing, because I just think it's the core of good animation. Like, you know, I've mentioned this before in like some previous talks and stuff like that. I have to be careful of repeating myself, but like something that I read a while ago that Glenn Keane said that I just thought was really interesting was that like people generally, they don't remember motion. Like what you remember is like still pictures of things. You know, if you think back to your favorite animated movies, it's you don't really remember things moving that much. It's like if you think about it, you do, but if you just think about it realistically, how you really think about stuff, it's like you remember pictures, and that just kind of really stuck with me. And you know, I think that you can have a single pose that tells a whole story, and you don't even need movement, you know, and timing is only a product of movement anyway. But you know, timing is super important. Timing is like timing is, I think, more of an expression of the style, you know, of the animation, where posing, like you need good posing no matter what the style. Like more realistic, like VFX animation isn't so heavily dependent on timing, you know, as something like a Warner Brothers animation, or like a, you know, great animation from like Blue Sky or Disney, or, you know, or Leica or something like that, beautiful timing. But all of those things need good posing. Otherwise, it's just, the animation is just never going to look good unless the poses look nice. I do truly believe that.
See, so what do you think is the best way for animator to learn acting?
I don't know. I don't think that I ever really learned acting, and I don't really know how good my acting shots are, to be honest. Like, you know, people say they're good, but I don't know. I think that when I'm choosing my acting choices, it just comes from me acting it out in front of a camera, and I literally do it. Like, if I have a shot that's like, you know, some guy saying something like, I don't know, why don't you go and turn off the TV or something like that? Like, I will literally act that out like 100 times. And I find that it's only about the 50th time that you've done it that it begins to feel natural, you know. And that's what you're looking for. Like, you're looking for a performance in the character which is honest, which is like, you know, it's not a cliche, and also isn't something, you know, new. Like, that's not the point. The point is that it needs to feel genuine. And like, I think that the only way I know how to do it is by acting it out. You know, I think that as animators, we don't realize what we're doing, but we are kind of, when we're watching movies and we're watching people, you know, we're looking at people's body language and we're looking at people's expression without even really knowing it. But I don't really know. I think just shoot reference and like try and be conscious of looking at how people act. And, you know, I don't just mean in movies, I mean in real life, and just look at the funny little things that people do. Like, you know, the way that people sit, the way they kind of hold their bodies, or little things that they do, like scratch their neck when they don't know what to say, or I don't know, just kind of look for those things and try and make a mental record of them. I don't know.
See, have you tried Disney's Hyperion, this render?
No.
Or,
no.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a render.
A renderer. No, I mean, I'm not a rendering guy. I have so much respect for like lighters and compositors and, you know, effects artists and stuff, like, and shaders and like surface artists and modelers, because those guys are crazy. I don't know how they do half the stuff they do. Yeah, I don't know anything about rendering. It's not what I learned how to do. I know how to put some lights in Maya, and I know what global illumination is. I know what ambient occlusion is, but I don't know how to do any of it, you know.
I see. If we would want to create an animated feature film without any budget and any producers, what do you think we should do?
If we were going to create an animated feature?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I think that's kind of a broad question. I think that what you would have to do is find the people that were going to make that film, and then you would have to decide somehow, like, what is the most common thing that you all want to do, and then choose that as an idea. You know, I think the strongest thing that you can have is just an idea that everybody wants to do. I don't know what else there is than that, really. I don't know. I mean, there's a whole side to it. It's like, what you're making the movie for. Are you making it for passion? Are you making it to learn? Are you making it to make money? This just too broad of a question, I think. But I think you can't do anything unless the people that are actually creating it want to do it and are passionate about it. Otherwise, it just won't be good. Yeah.
See, tell us which details help you to express the nature of character in your animation?
I think that it's a little bit like I said before. It's like you want to find things that everybody recognizes, you know, but without it being a cliche. Like if, you know, when somebody thinks, like nobody goes like this.
Yeah.
You know, like people don't do that. But that comes from, you know, that's an idea from a long time ago where somebody might, when someone is thinking about something, they might do something like this. They might go like, yeah, I don't know, man. Do you know what I mean? Like something like that. And those are, it's those kind of, those gestures that you can put in your animation, because I guess it's about empathy, right? It's like you're trying to put stuff in your animation that is universal as possible, that people recognize, but isn't necessarily something that everybody has done before. Like there's something that it's difficult to describe, but so the beautiful movie that Leica did recently, Kubo and the Two Strings, there's like a lovely little shot, and it's really a nothing shot. I mean, I don't want to say that about anybody's work. I mean, it's not a shot that you would think is particularly important, but there's a little moment where Kubo, this little boy, and I'm not sure how old he is, but I imagine him to be about 10 years old, and he just does something really simple. I mean, if I'm remembering this rightly, he kind of takes a couple of steps and then he sits down or something, or he turns around. I can't remember exactly, but to me, it just looked like the way that my son moves. And like, I could just recognize everything, like how, you know, if this is his feet, like how long his heel was in the air, his heel before his foot touched the floor, just little things that really felt like he was a little boy and not, you know, not an animated character trying to look as if he's a little boy. He really felt like a little boy to me, like many, many times in that movie. And that's what you're looking for, like an honest performance that people can, that hopefully everybody can understand, because at some point in their life, they've seen it with their own eyes in real life.
I see. So tell us, how do you keep your motivation? How do you stay motivated?
That's a really tough question. I think, you know, you have to like what you're doing at work. Like if you're going to go to work and spend 8 hours a day there, you have to enjoy it, and you have to look for opportunity to challenge yourself and improve yourself. You know, and a lot of the time you're going to be doing stuff that you want to do, and a lot of the time you're not going to be doing stuff that you want to do. It's just part of you know, being a professional. It's like you have to deal with those things. But I think everything that you do, whether you like it or not, you still learn from it. And I think motivation is about, I think, trying to prove to yourself that you can do those things that you want to do. And sometimes they can just be tiny little things, you know, like, oh, I want to learn how to like write a little Python script or a little Mel script, or, you know, I want to learn a little bit about shading, or, you know, I want to just do a stupid little animation of like, you know, like something breathing or something like that. Sometimes that's all it can take just to keep you motivated, is to see yourself doing something good. You know, but it's difficult, like particularly like trying to find time to work on your own stuff at home, like after work, if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in. It's hard, you know, with families and stuff. That's kind of what I try to do, like just do little things where I feel proud of, however big or small they are, and just as much as I can, like try and keep my own projects at least moving, like even if they never go anywhere, you know, just at least keep them moving, because you're learning from it, you know, and sometimes these things, that's how long they take, you know. And I think as well, like, I tried to say this before, but if anyone does feel unmotivated, you know, all of these things can be learned. You know, if you're an animator that's just starting out and you feel like you don't know how to do the basics of animation, or, you know, you just have to keep trying. And like being a new animator, you know, like when you first start out and you first start animating, that's the best time. That's the best time, because you just learn everything every single time you open the computer and you do something. You're learning something new. Like even if you don't think that you are. Yeah.
Now here's another question. How do you find a point where animation will be expressive enough but not freaky?
Expressive enough but not freaky?
Yeah.
I think that comes down to what, I guess, the concept of keeping something on, it's called keeping it on model. And that is where, especially, I mean, it's on the entire character, but especially in the facial expression of a character, what you can often do is you can create an expression where you'll kind of move parts of the mouth, the eyes, whatever, however many controls you have. And it just won't look like the character anymore. It's kind of like, you know, you'll have a famous character like Daffy Duck, and then you kind of pose his face, and then he kind of looks like Daffy, but he looks weird, like he doesn't look right. And that's the concept of like what's called keeping the character on model. And that's the same with the body, like with the body posing as well. You know, like there's just certain poses and stuff that just look wrong on the character. And you just have to learn that. That comes from like working with the character and getting used to it, and also just making sure that you're showing people, because sometimes you can put something off model and you kind of don't realize that you've done it. Because, you know, you see the work over and over, and you just need to get people to look at it. And also just like look at other shots. You know, if you're working on a movie, it's very important, or anything, on a game, whatever, personal project, short film, where other people, not just you, are producing shots. You need to make sure that you're looking as much as you can at the work that everyone else is doing, you know, so you can learn from those guys, but also so that you can see like where the things are that look good, like, oh, you know, that expression looked cool, or like that little thing there just really felt nice for the character, you know, I should probably use that, or, you know, using an extension of that idea in like a different way or whatever. But yeah, it's an easy thing to do, to put a character off model. Yeah.
Are there any simple rules that always help you in your work?
I think making a choice is not as early as possible, but just sometimes realizing that you have to just choose is a good thing to do, is a good thing to get used to. Because, you know, with an animation, there's basically like as many grains of sand in the whole universe as there are different ways that you could animate one shot. And so you have to just trust your instinct and just make a choice. And even if you feel like you're not sure if it's the best one, it doesn't matter. Just carry on and do it. And if no one says it looks bad or it looks wrong, then just carry on and do it and make it look cool. You can't be second guessing all the time, or you just won't finish you just won't finish your shot. And also, you know, get people to look at your shot and get people to be honest. Like you want, obviously we all want people to look at our shot and say, oh, it's awesome, man. It's, oh yeah. But you also want to show people that are going to say to you, yeah, you know what, Cam, like it's that little bit there, like it's a bit quick, or like, you know what, the way he picks that up, what if he did this? Like, you want to show those kind of people because that just makes your work better. And like, improve your workflow, like use hotkeys, you know, things like that are really, really important. Just because you want to be able to animate without thinking about what your hands are doing. You don't ever want to be going like, oh, Alt K or like Shift T or whatever. You just don't want to ever do that stuff. You just want to be able to get into the zone of what you're doing.
I think we already talked about it a little bit, but I'll ask, you've worked in 3 industries: cartoon, game, and movies. How different is...
So let me stop you there. So I haven't done any cartoon work.
I have.
Yeah, I haven't done. So I did some 2D animation when I was at college, and it was like there's like a famous British movie, like an old like 70s movie called Watership Down, and it's about these. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's kind of weird and creepy, but it's a brilliant film about this kind of colony of rabbits. Like, it's amazing. And I did like a little animation in 2D, and it was like very old school. Like, I traced it and photographed it, you know, and recorded it on videotape of like a rabbit kind of running along. And it was so hard, man. It was just impossible. It was so difficult. But I've done so video games, basically VFX and full CG feature animation, but not, you know, kind of Flash based cartoon or 2D cartoon work. I'm not that good of an animator to do that stuff.
Okay, but is the approach for gaming and movies is different?
I think that they, you know, the way games are now, there's a lot of convergence. I think that like 10, 15 years ago, maybe not so much, but at the core, yeah, they are very different. They're very, very different. Like, the techniques are the same in terms of how you animate. Obviously, like, you just use Maya or whatever you're using. It's all the same concepts, but you know, the output is different. I mean, there's like fundamentally a big difference between games and movies is that games generally don't have a fixed camera. So the concept of posing is kind of, it's not that it goes away, it doesn't go away at all, but it's very different. And games are, you have to think about a lot of other things that you don't have to think about at all in a movie. Like, you have to think about the responsiveness of the movement of a character, like how long, if the player presses a button and the character needs to jump, you can't have the character spend like 30 frames doing a big anticipation, and that, like, it just does, those things just don't work. It's about responsiveness.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess movies are more about story and trying to get the audience to empathize with character, whereas games, it's more about trying to make the audience feel like they are that character, which is kind of the same thing as empathizing, but it's just way more direct in video games than it is in movies, I think, because the player has to actually control those characters.
Say, what do you think? Which technical skills should animator improve besides animation? Maybe programming, rigging, which tools?
I think if you... I think everyone would probably give you a different answer on this one, but I think 3D, if you want to be able to master your tools as a 3D animator, then you should learn at least some kind of scripting within the software that you use, just because all you're doing is you're empowering yourself, you know, to be able to solve problems quicker or like do mundane things much faster, which all that really does, it's not about speed, it's about opening up opportunity for you to do more experimentation, which is where the good ideas come from. But But I guess the artist in me says, like, just keep drawing. Like, that's something that I never did, and I wish, for God's sake, I wish that I had. But, you know, I think the choice that I made was to learn programming. I don't regret that choice, because there's a lot of stuff that I have been able to do and a lot of problems that I've been able to solve that have made my animation better because of those things.
See.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, guys, we need to finish our meeting. Our animators from Siberia asked to say hello.
Hey guys.
Special hello, yeah. So, Cam, thanks a lot for taking time and meeting with us today. And have fun and good luck you, and thank you.
Yeah, no problem, guys. It's super fun talking with you. Thank you so much, guys, and good luck with everything. Yeah, just I don't know, keep animating and having fun and just learning stuff.
Okay.
Cheers, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.